Good morning, everyone. Oh my gosh. Welcome to PFY Live. And Michael Hoffman and I have been having some conversation here before we went live, and we're just enjoying the laughter and the energy that comes from big families. So we both
Big
come from
family
big
fun.
It is. I mean, we just had my sister's wedding over the weekend, so lots of family time, lots of big family time, lots of fun, and the difference between like my husband has only one sibling. So, and you said you have son-in-laws, right?
Yeah, I have two son-in-laws and a daughter-in-law. She's fresh.
Yeah. So all of that energy that comes from large families, that when you move away, you kind of miss them a little bit. So it's good to be back together with them and celebrating. So, gosh, okay, what are you drinking? Coffee?
Actually, I'm going. I'm not going Lent, but I have come accustomed, and I do enjoy a good black coffee with cinnamon. Always the cinnamon.
I saw some commercial about that, like how cinnamon is good for weight loss and for attention, all kinds of things. Like cinnamon has a lot of good properties to it.
Well, I'm not going to back up the weight loss thing because I've been pounding the cinnamon, and COVID-50 is real. I don't know about this 19 thing, but
well, are you?
It ain't working, sweets.
Are you using Penzeys cinnamon? I mean, maybe it's the brand.
It could be the brand. I'm gonna go. If it works, I would eat a tree. I would do it.
The bark. Mm-hmm. Oh gosh. I decided I needed soda this morning, pop or soda, whatever you each call it. So I get some Pepsi going on. I already had a cup or two of coffee, so I figured I better, not dial it down on the caffeine, but just
dial it down. You're doubling down is what you're doing. That's exactly right. I'll show you caffeine withdrawals. Do it.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
You want to see somebody come off the ledge? Watch this.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah. Okay, it's gonna happen. Yeah. All right. So we are back to this topic, the same topic we've had for the last couple of weeks, and it's about meetings. Oh my gosh, meetings. And you, I know, are like the king of helping companies and organizations and ministries and individuals and groups have great productive meetings and meetings with purpose. Right, Mike?
It's been a battle cry because we do so many, especially online these days. Holy cow. I mean, trying to get things done online, now more than ever, our productivity is really in question. Is this the best use of my time? All that good stuff. And meetings are just an essential part of our lives, especially in ministry, man. You're not working with authority. You're working in a volunteer army, and being productive is so important because I've got kids to feed, and you want me to have a meeting with you about the upcoming youth trip. You're crazy. So we better make it worthwhile. So yeah, we got to get good at this.
We got to get good at it. And I think there's also kind of this negativity around meetings, right? I think people don't want to attend meetings, or they've been to so many poor meetings, right?
Yeah.
I know last time we made the comment, we walk into a room to attend a meeting and like, oh, she's in charge. Great. This is going to be good. Or he's in charge, right? Because we know that they have this, right? Skill, right? To lead the meeting. And so last time we started to unpack a little bit the outline that you have, or the template that you have designed and have used for many years. And so I know we want to go deeper in that today.
Yeah, I really do. As a matter of fact, we talked about the two types of, or the two needs in every interaction. There are two needs in every interaction. So in our short time today, what I want to focus on is the practical side, because there's actually two areas of influence. One is the personal side. I'm dealing with people, and so in our conversations, I've got to make sure that I'm using good people skills because those are used throughout the conversation. But getting things done, being very practical minded and having an agenda and why you're going to do it that way is tremendously helpful, because we can steer off in any path that we want to go down, but you'll always have a place to go back to, which is tremendously helpful. And so I've got a template that I want to really kind of maybe go down a little bit deeper with you today, because it has been the moneymaker for the last 25 years. I've been a consultant for organizations, coming in and saying, here, do this, because this is what I do to have good meetings. Yep, so it really, really works. So I want to kind of go deeper on the practical side today.
Hey, Practicals are good. I mean, people's skills are super important as well, but practicals on how to actually get it done, I think will help to, as the person leading the meeting, will help you have confidence stepping into that meeting. So, do you want to share your screen?
I do. I want to share my screen. So, let me set this up. So, what you're going to see is you're going to see a path. So the path is the conversation, is the meeting. So this is our meeting. By the time we get to the end of the meeting, we want to accomplish something. You know, here's what the meeting was set out to do. And sometimes we have one issue. Sometimes we've got an agenda of 10, folks. We got a lot of work to do. Buckle up, cheesecake. Here we go. But the conversation starts very specifically. So it starts, and then we get things on the table, and we have discussions, and we develop an action plan, and we do things that make our meeting effective, and we're getting things done. We're giving roles. We're working out problems, whatever it is, and we end strong. So there is a path. This is the practical side. The practical side, you're going to see our signposts along this path of the conversation, starting the conversation right, making sure everybody's on the same page, making sure all the puzzle pieces are on the table before we get into the topic, making sure that we've developed a good action plan, and then making sure before we leave, there's buy-in, there's no fog, everybody knows what to do, and then we end strong. So there's signposts along the path. The personal side of an interaction is in each of these steps, you're dealing with people. So you would apply those skill sets throughout the entire path. Make sense?
Perfect. I love it.
So let me show you this. Let me show you my screen. And I'm going to, no, I don't want to do an application. Here we go. I want to show you. Did it do it? What can you see? Oh, there we go. Cool. Okay. So this is from my model that I teach. It's from a program called Coaching Within the Tornado, because we all live within the tornado of business, the tornado of life. And this is the application of this particular conversation. But just for today, so this is from a bigger program, but just for today, I'm going to take this template. So these are the two needs of an interaction. The personal needs, we talked about 3 tools last time. We talked about self-esteem issues, dealing with people as people issues, keeping them involved in the process. We talked about how we listen, how we use our paralanguage to make sure that we're, getting folks involved, really hearing what the issues are, and involvement. And the importance of involvement. But the guidelines are the conversation themselves. You start the conversation off strong. Everybody's on the same page. We know why we're doing it. If you've ever been in a meeting for more than 15 minutes and you have somebody go, "Why am I here?" Then this is where they drop the ball. Okay. They didn't start strong and with clarity. I'm going to give you some tips on that. I'm going to give you tips on all these steps. Awesome. Then after we get started, assess the wants and needs is where you get all the issues of whatever the topic is. We get them on the table and we assess the wants and needs. Now, so it's like putting, if the first step, starting the conversation, is like showing a puzzle box. Here's the puzzle. This is what's going to look like when we get done. And everybody goes, "Okay, I'm glad I'm here." So then we open up the puzzle box and we get all the pieces on the table, because you can't put the puzzle together unless you got all the pieces together, all the pieces on the puzzle. I'm bringing some of the pieces. You're bringing some of the pieces. Everybody in the meeting's got pieces. So we make sure all the pieces are on the table before we move to the next step, which is, okay, let's come up with the plan. So let's discuss the plan. Let's come up with the plan. Who's doing what by when? Let's work it through. Let's wrestle with it so that we know what to do with the issue that was brought.
I love that analogy, Michael, of the puzzle, right? And I think everybody sees like this is where we're going, and they can then say, "I know what piece of the puzzle I am," right? That's a great analogy. Fantastic.
Yeah. It works for me because so many times we move too fast into like the third step, which is lead the discussion, come up with an action plan, or lead them through the planning. Let's discuss it. Sometimes we move to that too fast and we don't get all the puzzles pieces on the table. So the next step is to put the puzzle together. And so we have all the pieces. You'll kind of see where the holes are. So we can't be done with this discussion until the puzzle is put together and we kind of know what we're going with. And then the next step is before we leave, and this is probably one of the most common steps that people skip, is let's eliminate any objections. I want to make sure, we've got the puzzle down here. We put it together. What do y'all think? Are we all in? Do you know what to do? Do I know what to do? Are there any takeaways from this? Is there follow-up? Let's make sure there's buy-in. Too many times we Just because I said it in the lead the discussion phase doesn't mean that people bought into it.
Yep.
And so you have people talking in the hallway after the meeting when they should have been talking in the meeting because you never slowed down enough to do it. So eliminate any objections. If you've ever been in a meeting where you were taken by surprise a week later when they came up to you and said, by the way, are you going to, that's due tomorrow. And you go, I didn't know that was me. Then this is the area, this is where they dropped it.
Yep.
Yeah, we're not walking with papers. And then to end strong, summarize and close and to end strong. So that, in a nutshell, is the overall. In the download that we have, I know we had it last week. I'm sure we'll have it this week. This is in. So I've got these 2 pages. These are what I call Mike's tips. So in the people tools, I give you some things to think about. We went over that last week, but this one is the gold. This is where I break down each of the steps and I give you some tips on what to think about in each of those sections. I call them Mike's tips or whatever you want to call them. So the highlighted pieces are the goals. People ask me all the time, well, how long should I spend in getting it started? And my answer is it's not about time.
Yeah.
It's about a goal. So the goal is to open with purpose and importance. So however you're going to do that, you're going to open with making sure that they know the reason why. It's connected with the purpose of the meeting. This is what we're doing, and this is the importance of it. Nothing worse than getting into a meeting where we think it's a waste of time. And if you feel that way, that's what you're missing.
Yeah.
You're missing the importance, and you're missing the purpose of the meeting. So I got a couple tips for you. Real simple. One is use the performance standards to get the topic on the table. That's just business speak for make sure that it's connected to what we're trying to accomplish. So if you have a vision, let's say you're in youth ministry and you're trying to have a meeting, you connect the purpose of this meeting with vision, whatever that vision is. So that's business standards. That's business for the ministry talk as we may connect it with vision. And when in doubt, use the words purpose and importance. A lot of people go, well, how do I make sure I do that? It's so simple. Use the words purpose and importance when you start off. The purpose of this meeting is, it's important because, and you check it.
That's simple, right? That's simple.
So
yeah. Would you suggest too sometimes, like before you move to that next step in the template or the process of the meeting, just asking everyone, like, are we clear on what the goal is? Is everyone clear? Do we have any questions about, why we're here?
I love that. You're going back to the people needs to make sure that everybody's on board. So that's an involvement question. Ooh, nice. So the involvement question is basically making sure we're all on board. The way I like to look at it is in between. Can you see my cursor, by the way?
I can't right now. Where is? I can see it now. Okay, I can see it. Yep.
So in between each of these steps is a doorway. Picture a doorway. So this is a standalone section of the conversation. We're not moving into any of this stuff until this is done. Everybody's on board and we know what we're doing. It could take 1 minute, could take 10 minutes, whatever your thing is. But in between the next step and the step before it is a little doorway. And those are always good sections to ask the question you asked. Is everybody on board? I call those concurrence questions. And there's simple close-ended questions that check for understanding, make sure we're on board, ask for permission. Like, for instance, the next step is assessing the wants and needs. I like to separate these 2 steps. This is probably the most important part of your conversation, assessing the wants and needs and leading them to a discussion. They're 2 separate things. And so what happens is we don't really spend enough time in this piece, getting all the pieces on the puzzle, and we start talking about solutions because somebody brought one thing up. So we got one piece on the puzzle and we go, well, let's solve it. And we jump down here too fast when there could have been more issues on the table that we could have brought. We didn't get all the pieces on the puzzle. Here's how you know you've done that in the past. If you are trying to solve the issue at hand and you're getting pushback from your people going, well, we tried that before, or, that's not going to work because, or, you know what? Well, the issue is those are tales that you moved here too fast. Okay. And it's a waste of time because now you got to go back and you got to go, okay, well, evidently I don't know everything. So what else? What am I missing? I know we tried that 5 years ago, but what makes you think? So we don't have the issue. So here's some great tips, and this is gold. If you can get these two pieces, you will nail meetings from now on. The first step in assessing the wants and needs is get all the pieces of the puzzle on the table. And I give you 4 topics just to put in your back pocket, memorize them, bring them up every time. Facts, figures, issues, and concerns. If you can get those things out on the table, you've pretty much got all the pieces of the puzzle on the table. Facts, figures, issues, and concerns. And if you use those words, so what are the facts? What do we need to know? All right, is there numbers involved? How many are we talking about? Okay. Well, how does that play into what we're trying to accomplish as far as the figures? Does it play? Facts, figures, issue. Well, what concerns do we have? If you just use that in there, you're going to cover pretty much everything. And the big tip is get both sides. Just because you've been planning for this presentation doesn't mean that they don't have things that might surprise you. Too many times we get our side of the box out, we don't get their side of the box out, and we're only dealing with half a puzzle.
Yep.
So that's a big old tip, is both sides, facts, figures, issues, and concerns. Get all the pieces on the puzzle. Make sense?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I would agree with you. I've done that myself, where we've moved too quickly into that next segment. And then I feel like we're always going back, and that waste of time, but it also disrupts the discussion, Right.
It kills the flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what I find is that sometimes you bring up issues, or they bring up issues you didn't even think about.
Yeah.
You know what, that was a shocker. I didn't even know that was an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very important. This is, depending on the type of conversation, this step is probably the most important step, especially if you're dealing with a situation where you're trying to have a conversation and the goal is to address a challenge. Maybe it's in behavior, maybe it's in, in other words, there's an improved performance discussion. This step is tremendously critical because you don't know their side of the story. You may think you do, but you don't. Yeah. So to have an opportunity where you ask them for their facts, figures, issues, and concerns may bring light. Like, for instance, this literally just happened within the last month, where I'm working with a client out in Orlando. I'm in Dallas, and so everything's been virtual. And one of the biggest complaints of this person, and I was asked to sit in on the meeting, is that they've got some issues, behavior issues, and one of them is tardiness. And it's causing some backup, and she's building a reputation that she does not want. So we're going to nip it in the bud. We got to have a conversation. Nobody's getting written up, but we definitely want to bring it up. And so we start off the conversation with, it's really important. Purpose and importance. Purpose of this is to kind of talk about the last 4 meetings we've been in, and there's been a real tardiness issue, and it's really, I've noticed that you have 2, and it's really important for you to be there because you're representing blah blah blah. So we start off strong. And I tell her my facts, figures, issues, and concerns, and I try to be as specific as possible. Last 4 meetings, I've been timing it, and also I've heard back from 3 people. So I don't want you to build this reputation. So I thought we would talk about it because something's going on. This is not like you. Self-esteem, by the way. Yeah, this is not like you. So what's going on? And she started to tell me about some things that happened. Her husband's been laid off, and so he's been out more than he normally is, and it's a handling the kids issue.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. How would you know that? I'm not part of the Psychic Network. And that went from somebody being belligerent and not caring about coming to the meetings to, oh, you've got family stuff, and I totally get it. So we talked. So we got all the issues on the table. Totally changed where we were going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes sense. So this step is very critical. In here, in one of my Mike's tips is a really big one. Don't let this go. It says use what else to ensure that you have all the issues. I ask what else 3 times, especially the more critical the meeting, because what else does is it slows me down from moving to solution too fast. Because sometimes I get excited by what I hear because I can solve that. We can solve that. Let's jump. But it keeps me from getting all the puzzles of the pieces on the piece of the puzzle on the table. So I train myself to ask what else 3 times.
Well, and I think too, what it does too for the other people around the table is it gives them another second to like think about, gosh, what else is there, or maybe to give someone courage to say what they maybe they were afraid to say, right? So by just saying what else, or what else do we need to think about, or what else do we need to have on the list? And so I think that's a really good tool. What a great tip.
Yeah, it's made me a lot of money. because number one, it keeps your mouth from talking.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to ramble, as you know. And it also really helps the person get things on the table, because sometimes it's not forthcoming right away.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have a little bit of opportunity. So, and look at that. I've even written in there the same tip that you gave, which is use for check-ins, check for understanding, to make sure there's no misunderstanding. Ooh, look at you, just jumping on it.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. See, so that's a good doorway question. But you get all the pieces of the puzzle on the table. Yes? Makes sense?
Yeah. Yep.
Check for understanding question? Involvement?
Great.
Nice. Moving on. Okay, so then lead the discussion is the next big one where most people drop the ball. And this is, the goal is to come up with an action plan, or whatever we brought up with the issues and concern, what needs to be addressed. Sometimes it's fixing things. Sometimes it's just helping somebody think it through. Sometimes it's, whatever the meeting is about, this is where we get to put it together. So a couple of big tips on my end is, especially if you're trying to build team and build community, I know you're closer to the situation. You probably have a billion ideas, but think about what is the goal of the conversation. Sometimes, most of the time, it's to get my people to think and do. I can only do so much in my ministry. My job is to build my volunteer army. And if I just show up by throwing out a lot of orders, that's how we come up with an action plan. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. I don't build ownership. I just build little diatoms walking around, little soldiers. And so what this looks like is you get frustrated that nobody takes point on anything because you've trained them to wait for instructions. It's your fault. Stop it. So if you really want to build an army of people that own the ministry, make them a part of the ministry. And my biggest tip is that very first square underneath the italicized one. Go there first. You may have an idea of what needs to be done, but get into the habit of saying, what should we do? What do you think? I'm open to ideas. Doesn't mean you don't have any. Just go there first. Seek more than tell. And the goal is to build ownership. I had a great boss, Dennis Cherry, and one of the things that I discovered with him is 9 times out of 10, what I came up with when he asked me what I would think is what he would have said anyway. But his genius was that I said it, so I owned it.
Yep.
Now, it doesn't mean that he never gave. He gave all kinds of things. As a matter of fact, in this step, we're going to come up with a plan together. It's not like I'm going to leave you hanging going, if you don't have any ideas, we're done. But I'm going to go there first, because if I started it, what happens to that idea?
Oh, right. Totally.
It becomes the thing. If I say, hey, we might want to do it this way, all of a sudden, let's run with it, boss. That sounds good to me. Let's do it. And so we still have a conversation, but I go there first because I want them to have that first impact on that.
And I, like you, have often found, someone suggests what I was thinking should be the solution. But I also found that sometimes they actually came up with a solution that far exceeded what I thought the solution should be.
Oh, absolutely. That is
right.
Biggest ahas a good leader can really give to themselves, is that your people are actually pretty dang brilliant. And synergy is so important in ministry.
Yeah.
God's given us all. I mean, what's that analogy? We're a big body. Everybody's got pieces and parts, and holy cow, we're meant to tap into each other.
Exactly, right? All the limbs of the tree, right? All of our gifts and skills and talents coming together. And I think whether you're leading a meeting with teenagers, which I feel like they just have a wealth of ideas. I mean, they can, and they really take ownership and run with it too, when you give them a little bit of, you give them some ownership and to run with their ideas. So this formula works both if you have all adults at the table, whether they're volunteers or staff you're working with, or whether you've got your youth at the table, maybe they're your peer leaders or whatever the meeting is about. Not to underestimate that teenagers can have some excellent ideas and solutions.
Well, it is the key to a vibrant youth group. If you don't have your youth involved in just ideas of what to do, how to run it, meetings, getting people involved. If our openings, whenever the youth did the opening, that was part of the senior group, is we wanted the senior group to take over the openings. Well, sometimes they need a little coaching in that.
Mm-hmm.
They're frozen. What do I do? Well, have a quick meeting, and this is the template. But any idea they came up with is I'm going to go with. And that's really a big tip before we move on is sometimes people come up with ideas that are not the way you would have done it. But look at the genius of going with what they came up with, because it's their thing. And that's what you want. You want people feeling like this is our ministry. This is us, not just, the kids have enough school. They get told to do things enough. Make me a part of the tornado, not a victim of the tornado, and you'll find a more dynamic group of kids.
It's a great way to say that. Great way to say that. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, next step.
Eliminate objections and summarize and close. This is kind of the closing of the interaction. It's eliminate objections is a big step. Most of us skip it. I talked about. It's basically who does what by when. And the way I say it is no fog. Before we leave, I don't want anybody guessing as to what we just did. And if there's any action steps or follow up, everybody knows what their role is and what's expected of them. And that's really what it is. Back in Assess and Wants and Needs, I have a note there that says take notes. It really comes in handy in this step because you review your notes. So we talked about this, especially if your agenda has 10 things on it. You talked about a lot of things. So just make sure there's no fog. That's the biggest thing. This is also the step that you're looking for buy-in. Because sometimes, especially in challenging conversations, you've come up with the wants and needs and, we got to fix this. So let's come up with an action plan. Here's the expectations. This is what I'm looking for from you. I've had a lot of these conversations with teens. So I want it to be involved in them, but we can't continue to have this behavior if this is going to continue, so we got to talk about it. And this step right here just lets me know, are you good? Are we done? Are you on board? Is there anything else? And so I'm not just looking for buy-in. I'm looking for the face, the tone of whatever, dude, or, if I'm working with teams, if somebody throws in say, well, hang on a second. What about this? That's a signal. We're not done. Don't close yet. Yeah. But where do you go in this particular template? Where do you go? If somebody came up with here's a concern. What do? You go back to where the concerns go.
Yeah.
Facts, figures, issues, and concerns. So you ask the question, well, what's the concern? I don't know if I can get that done by then. Okay, well, let's talk about timing. That's connected to this. So you get the facts, figures, issues, and concerns back on the table. Let's come up with an action plan. Does that need to be tweaked? Are you feeling better about that? Yeah, that looks good. Okay, any other fogs, questions? So, and that leads me to this big tip right here. This little trio is gold, ladies and gentlemen. This 30 minutes of chit chat is all right here, Jackson. So if you've got a 10 list item on your agenda, this is how it works. Start the conversation. Everybody's on board. We got 10 things to do today, kids. Here's the agenda, 10 things. Number 1, let's get it on the table. Facts, figures, issues, and concerns. Anybody else got them? What are your facts, figures, and concerns? All right, what are we going to do about it? Come up with an action plan. Discover. Sounds great. Everybody on board? Yes. Number 2, get it on the table. Facts, figures, issues, and concerns. Anything we got to do about that? Everybody on board? Anything? We miss anything? Nope. Number 3, bump, bump. Number 4, bump, bump. You will be the most productive you've ever been in your life. You're welcome.
Well, thank you, Michael Hoffman.
Yeah. And then at the very end, I'm telling you, this has been my model. So, and then at the very end, there's just some notes to end on a high note. And just a quick tip, you can always end strong. You either praise the plan or you praise the people, but you can always say something positive, but you end on a high note. Got some tips there for you. The last thing is if you do the download, I've got a discussion planner, which takes those 5 steps. Start the conversation, assess the wants and needs, lead them to eliminate objections, summarize, close. Print this sucker out. If you've got an important meeting, print it out. I carry this with me all the time. I have never once in 25 years had somebody complain I was taking notes during a conversation, not once. Nobody ever said, what are you doing? And if they did, I had people ask me what I was doing all the time, but I told them, well, I think what you're saying is important. I got to write it down, otherwise I forget it. Okay. But this planner keeps the discussion in front of you. And you can prep a little bit. Prep, what is the purpose and important? Put it in the conversation starter so that you know how to start strong. Write down 3 questions to get the ball rolling, Make sure your agenda is written out there. This is a great place to take notes, flip it over, take notes, and make sure you go who does what by when. So this sheet, I literally keep in front of me so that you know how to work that circle. assess the wants and needs, come up with a plan, make sure there's no fog, and just item after item after item. So I really recommend this discussion planner. Has been a game changer for a lot of folks, including myself, and I use it all the time. So print it out, use it.
And I think not to feel embarrassed about having to take some notes, right? I think because I like to prep a little bit and think about some questions, and that way I can then jot them down there and be better prepared to lead the meeting.
Absolutely. The biggest thing that people are afraid of is being called out on something, like you like you said, prep. And my answer has always been, well, I consider your time very valuable. Yeah, I want to make sure we cover everything in as little time as possible. So I just put a little prep into it, and they can see my notes. If I did take notes on some of the things like I got to bring up, like for instance, in the assessing wants and needs, facts, figures, issues, and concerns. If some of the concerns are pretty challenging, and I wrote them down, I might not want to show them that, but that's discretion. You use your brains. But the fact is that I've never had anybody complain that I took time in preparing for our conversation so that we were effective. Not once.
Not once.
Take that fear off of your shoulders, ladies.
And the more you use this model and this template, it will become natural for you. Not that
Absolutely.
You might, right? And so I think it's a skill that you can be taught, and you can become an expert at leading meetings using this template, this format, and then the planner.
Yes, that's why I try to keep it simple. There's a lot of diagrams out there, meeting these diagrams that make it so, do this. It's keep it as simple as possible. That's why it's, if you notice, it says sales, SALES, mainly because it doesn't matter if you're trying to sell an idea, if you're trying to coach somebody, if you're trying to do a service call, it's all the same thing. When a conversation has to accomplish something, this is literally the format. Start it off strong, find out what the issues are. Let's address it. Make sure I've done it effectively and there's nothing else hanging out there. End strong.
Perfect. Oh my gosh.
And one more tip, just to throw this in here, and that is the reason why you want to get it down and kind of really practice it is you don't have to be running the meeting to let this help you. Because not everybody plans well. And if you're not running the meeting and you're finding that people are making some of the common mistakes that we talked about, like they're jumping to solution too fast, you can raise your hand. You're helping them out by going, hang on a second, before we move into that, can I ask what are some of the issues here? Because I'm kind of lost as to why it's important. Why are we doing this now? Some of the issues and concern are unfamiliar with me. Can we slow down a second and just talk about what are the concerns? Am I missing a fact or two? And you literally help them by, I promise you're not the only one thinking that. So by knowing what makes a good conversation, use it to help them in a nice way to kind of be as effective as possible. It really helps.
That is a great tip and just a great encouragement. Just because you're not leading the meeting doesn't mean you can't impact the meeting and the outcome. So that's just a great encouragement too. So Michael, this is gold. I mean, like gold. Like, we've all, I think, experienced meetings where, wow, we're like, why am I here? We have no solution. I don't know what I'm doing or who's doing what as we leave. And so this is great. Thank you.
God calls us to be good stewards with our time as well as our treasure. So be a good steward and help people have better meetings.
Oh, fantastic. Well, again, you are the king of communication and giving us some great tools to put in I think you always call it your tool belt, right? And you. Yeah.
Reach into that bag. Somebody said, don't use the bag analogy because it reminds me of a colostomy bag. Like, I think that's your issue than mine. I've never.
That's so not what I ever thought of.
I'm reaching into my bag. You're reaching into your colostomy bag? I understand. We could have ended on a high note, and I went down the wrong. I apologize.
No, it's okay. That's all right. So next week, we've got Maggie Craig back with us, and she's going to be talking to us about choosing your saint name for confirmation, since we're in the confirmation season here. And so we're going to chat with her about that and give you some tips on choosing your saint name. So Michael Hoffman, we will see you in a couple weeks. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you next Wednesday. God bless. Bye.